Yeah.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Can you guys hear me okay in the back? Yeah, is that loud enough? Thank you. A little louder? Okay. We'll see what we can do. Thank you, Kaylee. Okay, a little bit louder for the back. I'll stand over here and I'll try to project. So we'll try to remember that when we're on the mic tonight so that you can hear us all the way around the room. So first off, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Ken Lader. I'm the Public Works Director for Clark County. I want to thank you all for being here tonight. This is exciting for me to see this kind of turnout for any of our events. And it's been exciting to stand at the back table and get some of your perspectives. I know I see some smiles, some knowing smiles right now that may translate into, well, wait till you hear my questions, Ken. And that's fine. Like, that's what we're here to do tonight, is to hear your questions, to take your input and find out if we maybe have created some issues we haven't thought of. But first, before we get started, so I'm going to hand this off to Ali in a minute, or maybe 2 minutes. But first, I wanted to talk about what our project is and what it is not. So I know she's going to cover some of that as well. But we have a project out here that's coming this summer. It is not going to fix the chaos that is pick up and drop off at any of the schools. So I don't know if it's appropriate tonight that, if we were at Skyview, I could probably get away with this a little bit better. Home of the storm. We're waiting. The rain's it's starting now. Hopefully we'll get a little bit of excitement, but no hail. But for you guys to be out here tonight, that's meaningful. It takes something to be involved in your community like this. So I really do appreciate each and every one of you being here. So even our plants in the audience that make it go easier for us, I hope so. I'll stop with the jokes. I can tell they aren't landing. So our project is really a paving project. We're coming through. We're going to do a little bit of pre-work. You've already seen it. We're doing some curb repairs and ramps. And then we're going to put down new pavement. And we're going to do that when school is out. We're going to talk all about that. But then whenever we pave, we have to repaint the road. And so we're looking at the chaos that is school drop off and pick up out here. And we wanted to see, can we do something that would make it safer for the people that are crossing the road and safer for the cyclists in the area, especially during those times, but all times. And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We will present, but I just wanted to let you know, we welcome your questions. I do ask that you be cordial. My staff, some of them, this is their first time with a big crowd. I'll be here to help facilitate if things get a little too wild, I guess. But no question is a bad question. We think we have a lot of good ideas as far as safety here. And in terms of congestion versus safety, again, I can't solve the chaos that is tied to the schools right now. That's not what the county is here to do. But what we think we can do is make it a little bit safer for people that are in the corridor, whether you're driving or whether you're walking or biking. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Ali. And yeah.
Thank you, Ken. All right. Good evening, everybody. I almost said good morning. I was reading that sign over there. Good morning. No, good evening. For our online participants, or if you're interested in participating, go ahead and grab it from there. The presentation is going to be posted as well. If you're joining us remotely, here's your information. If anybody is not connected. So I just want to take a brief moment to not necessarily introduce, but ask everybody who is here with the county to stand up. The list is here in the presentation, will be posted. So if you want to reach out, these are the individuals that are here today. All very hardworking individuals. I love them dearly. Thank you. So I wanted to talk a little bit about why we're here, and I'm going to start us off with a little introduction from Steve Gallup, and he'll give us some background.
Hello, my name is Steve Gallup. I'm the Transportation Division Manager for the county. But first of all, I'd like to just thank everybody for being here. Really appreciate this. This is great. We as staff, we love this to be able to get input from you guys and things and to hear about our project that we want to do. Yep. Excuse me. There we go. Sorry. First of all, I just want to tell you a little bit of a story. I've been in this traffic industry for about 25 years or so. I do come from a different agency. I've been with the county for 2 or 3 years now, the Clark County here.
Move the mic up.
Okay, sorry. Dang it. I'll get this down hopefully. Back in 2007, we had the agency I was working for, we had a road exactly like this, where you see a crosswalk and you see 2 lanes crossing in each direction. We had a road like this. And back in 2007, we didn't see the potential danger with that. And unfortunately, we had to learn at a tragedy. We, a 10-year-old boy was trying to cross the road, and he ended up trying to cross 1 lane. He started into the 2nd lane, and a truck was coming and just ran him over, and he ended up dying. And that happened when I was kind of younger in my career and things. And I said to myself, I never want to have that happen again. I never want to stand in front of a mother of her kid dying and explaining what went wrong and what we're going to do to try to correct it. I never want that to happen again. So therefore, we have this project. We have 2 school crossings out there with this exact same thing, where there's 2 lanes that cross in each direction. And we're going to make those crossings safer so that this doesn't happen, what happened to me back in 2007. So that won't happen. We don't want, it's not guaranteed, but we don't want, all of us in this room don't want to see that happen. We want to make sure our kids go home and make it back home at the end of the day. Of course, that goes with anybody. We want to make sure everybody makes it back home, kids, adults, whatever. So can we go to the next slide? There we go. So this is what the issue is with those 2 school crosswalks out there right now, is that we have a crosswalk, a marked crosswalk, and we have 2 lanes going in each direction. So what happens when somebody wants to cross, car A will stop for that person and kind of hides that person. And then all of a sudden car B comes along, doesn't see what's going on, doesn't know why the cars stop, and just goes through. Then we have a potential issue there, as you can see. And so that's what we're trying, kind of one of the main reasons for this project is to make those school crossings safer so this doesn't happen. And so that's one of the reasons why we're trying to make it so there's only 1 lane that goes over each of these crosswalks. So with that, I think I am going to hand this over to Dylan or Ellie.
I'll start.
Okay.
I would appreciate it if we could hold questions to the end, and we will provide different opportunities as we go through it. Is that okay? I'm going to let Dylan get a little bit more into the specifics here, but all of these dots that are along the roadway on 139th and where it becomes Hathaway and Bliss represent collision incidents that have happened in this area. And there's a lot of them. I'm sure you can, even into the neighborhoods, on the side streets, it's a problem. And one of the primary things that we're here today to address is what can we do to try to reduce these points of collision? And so that is where our primary focus is. With that in mind, I'm going to give you a little bit of background. Before we get too deep into the collision, I want to kind of explain how we got to this point. I'm the project manager of the 2025 HMA overlay paving project that just comes through as part of our preservation department and treats the roads to keep them well preserved and make sure that they can continue on for the life of the town. In tandem, totally separate, unrelated to my paving project, the program team was working with our transportation department on this application for the Safe Routes to School grant. And I know there are plenty of you in here who are familiar with that application process. Our teams came out, we interviewed various staff who worked at the school, sat and studied the area, and got lots of metrics that went into the building of this application, as well as a really beautiful, robust design that included large concrete pedestrian refuges, the flashing beacons, and a number of other safety-related features to reduce those contact points between vehicles and pedestrians and students in the area. We ultimately did not get selected for that grant. So Steve came to my boss and said, hey, you're paving in the area. We need to make a change. And, you know, he came to me and he told me that story he just told you, and he got my buy-in. We are all, the majority of us, as the county people, as well as everybody here, parents, we are invested in these children when they leave the house in the morning or we drop them off, that they're going to come back at the end of the day. And that is what we're here to try to help make happen. We're looking at the collision history, we're looking at the issues with the school traffic, and we're looking at what can we do that's on our purview and under our budgetary restrictions to make this as best as we can today. Understanding that this grant comes back around next year, and we're going to continue to pursue that grant as well as other grants that are available so that we can bring in those lights, the beacons, the concrete. Today, we're focusing on the restriping effort. So we're already going to be doing paving. It's the perfect opportunity for us to use a painted approach to get us to a closer match to what we originally designed for this area. So with that in mind, I understand nothing that we do here today is going to solve the problem. But what we're going to do is going to get us closer. And this is an iterative process. We're going to come back at it, and we're going to come back again and again until we get it there. Okay? Dylan, you want to talk a little bit about the collision history?
Hi there, everyone. I'm Dylan Jennings. I'm one of our traffic engineers at the county. I believe our statistic here was there was 23 crashes along this small section of road. That is an abnormally high number of crashes. We've also had
1 month, 1 year, 5 years.
10 years over the last 10 years.
That's nothing. That's not.
There was a pedestrian crash at the Chinook Elementary School crosswalk. It was not a fatality, but it could have been. There was also 2 bicycle crashes at Skyview High School. So I think next slide. So this is the project corridor. This is the area that paving is happening. So this is the area that we're focusing on with this project. Is there anything else here? I don't think so. Next slide. Did you want to cover these?
So I talked about the flashing beacons and the concrete refuges that was part of our initial design. That is unfortunately not going to be within the project scope of our paving project this year. But what we are going to do is we're going to aim for these goals. We're going to improve safety, enhance the school crosswalks, reduce pedestrian crossing distances, and try to eliminate that multi-lane threat that Steve pointed out in the earlier slide. So we want to reduce those low visibility areas where when kids are crossing the street, they're not going to be hidden behind a car. It's going to be very obvious where they are, and it's going to at least allow for an opportunity to make, for a driver to make a better decision. By doing dedicated turn lanes, we're going to be in those areas where today there are 2 straight driving lanes and one is almost completely eliminated by people who are parked up trying to turn into the schools to pick up their kids. Those lanes are in 2 areas are going to be marked as dedicated turn lanes so that they're only going to be going into the schools. And the people who want to continue going straight have a dedicated lane for that. Okay? Buffered bike lanes, which means the bike lanes are buffered. There is an additional space between the bike lane and the travel lane, giving a little bit more of a safety focus for those bikers. High visibility line bike lane markings, and for those of you who are back looking at the exhibits, it's that bright neon green paint that you just can't miss. And the signage that we're bringing in is all that high visibility signage citing state law, you must stop for pedestrians in the crosswalk, etc. We are aiming for construction to start just after school ends in June and to be finished before school starts in August. So the intent here is that there will be no impact on the school year, the old one, the new one. But that is the goal. Do you have anything you wanted to add to that, Jim? This is our construction manager for the project.
As you've seen, we've been upgrading the ADA ramps. We're planning to have that completed during this summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit closer, you know.
So for the project, we need to update the ADA ramps. I'm sure you've seen it ongoing out on the road. We're going to be doing that work this upcoming week, starting on Saturday and completing the following Saturday. That allows us to comply with federal and state law when we go to pave the road this summer. Anticipated time to pave this road would be about June 17th after the school year ends. It'll run for probably about 2 weeks, and we'll definitely have everything wrapped up before school begins at the end of summer.
And this is a Dillon segment. So this is where we're getting into the design, the before and after road configuration.
And before I go into the more of the details here, I just want to mention that this is our current plan, but we are here to listen to the community. And if the community has feedback, things that you think could be better, we're all ears. So as you know, the current road configuration today has 2 through lanes each direction. We are changing that to 1 through lane each direction. And with that extra space that we're taking from the through lane that we're removing, we're adding in a buffer space for bikes to make it safer for bikes. And then we're also eliminating the multi-lane threat that Steve talked about earlier. Next slide. This is the proposed crosswalk section. So today there's nothing in the middle of the road to indicate to drivers that there's a crosswalk. We do have the existing crosswalk signs on the side of the road next to the sidewalk, but we don't have anything in the middle of the road. So we're adding some tubular markers, and we're also adding this state law stop for pedestrians in crosswalk sign. Next slide. So this is a overhead view of the entire project area. We've got a couple printouts of this around the tables. And online, you can also download this from the project website. I'm going to walk through a few specific areas to kind of get us thinking about specific locations throughout the corridor. Next slide. So this is at 21st Avenue. We're pretty much retaining the existing configuration here as what's there today. There will still be a dedicated right turn lane to go north onto 21st Avenue. We're adding green paint to make the bike lane more apparent. And there'll still be a through lane, and there will be a left turn lane to turn left into the neighborhood at 21st. There's also going to be chevrons within the buffer space. Those will indicate to drivers that they should stay in their lane and not drive into the bike lane, and indicate to bikes to stay in the bike lane.
Define chevron. For me.
The chevrons, those are kind of those arrows that are in the buffer area.
Painted method.
Those are painted, correct. Next slide. Okay, so this is the crosswalk at Chinook Elementary. Today, there are 2 lanes in each direction for through traffic, as well as the center lane. Also today, the dedicated left turn lane kind of goes into the middle of the crosswalk. So we're reducing the length of that left turn lane for Chinook Elementary by a few feet so that there is no conflict there with the left turning traffic and the pedestrians in the center. We're adding a center island, a painted center island for pedestrians to be able to wait in the middle for vehicles to stop. Last year, we added some stop bars to tell drivers you should stop here for pedestrians. We are retaining those in the design. We're also adding hatch markings within the middle lane to guide drivers to stay into their lane. And then you can also see kind of at the top, the bike lane will transition out so that the bikes are to the left of the right turn lane at 21st. And then there's only one lane that pedestrians have to cross each direction instead of the 2 lanes. So we're eliminating that multi-lane threat. Next slide. So this is at Chinook Elementary's driveway. We are retaining some of the turn lanes here. So there will still be left turn lanes, dedicated left turn lanes to get onto Northwest 31st Court for that neighborhood to the south, as well as a dedicated left turn lane for the school driveway. We are also adding a dedicated right turn lane here. And there's a diagonal line that we'll be putting in the middle of the intersection to guide drivers through the intersection that are going straight. And then we also have the green bike lane paint through the intersection. This is true for all intersections throughout the project, so that the bike lane is very obvious to drivers that are turning onto the side streets or off of the side streets. Next slide. So this is the middle school's driveway. This one's a little trickier because the crosswalk is next to the driveway, immediately adjacent. So we had to work that into the design. This is one of the areas that I have heard, personally, I have heard a lot of concern is this specific driveway. So definitely open to hearing some feedback and input on this driveway. So like I said, the crosswalk here is right next to the driveway. So we have the through lane for westbound traffic with the stop bar, or for eastbound traffic, there is a dedicated left turn lane to get into the school driveway here. And then again, the buffer throughout this whole segment to keep bikes separated from vehicles. and then the green paint going through the driveway to make that potential conflict very apparent to drivers. And then there's a painted island for pedestrians to wait in the middle if they need to wait for a gap in traffic. Next slide. Okay, so this is Skyview High School's driveway. I'm sure a lot of you are here because of this driveway. We know that there's a lot of traffic here. We know that there's problems here because of that traffic, especially during school pickup and drop off. This is the point where the lane cross section changes. So the inside lane for the east leg today is a through lane. We are converting that lane into a right turn only lane. We've observed many times during school pickup that drivers choose to wait in the bike lane and in the through lane to turn right into the school. So we're providing that space as part of this project as a dedicated right turn lane. And then for southbound coming from the school, we're not changing anything there. There will still be 2 lanes south to turn left out of the driveway. And also for eastbound, we're not changing anything here. There will still be 2 lanes eastbound to continue to the east through the intersection. We're going to save questions until the end. Thank you. Next slide. It's back to Ally.
We're almost at the end. All right, so again, and I want to reiterate that this plan set indicates what we can do today when we're working it into an existing project's already existing budget. Going forward, we have many more ideas for additional funding and additional upgrades that we can do in this area to make this an even better safety-focused corridor. So what we're doing here today is getting your feedback. We're here to listen. We're here to hear what your problems are, to understand what your thoughts are. And for many of you that are out there that have lived in the area or are engineers yourself, you have great ideas. We want those. Go to the website, find my email address, send me an email, tell me your thoughts. All of this will be worked into consideration in the future plans. Dylan is your guy. He's going to be working on it. I may not respond right away, but I will definitely make sure Dylan has a copy of all of that. So we have all of your thoughts and concerns as we move forward.
Comment cards.
And there are also comment cards and forms down there that you can fill in with your questions as well. Almost forgot. Thank you. Questions and answers. Okay, so the way we're going to do this is you're going to raise your hand and I'm going to send Ken out to you to ask your question. And then we're going to get somebody who's an expert to answer it. So.
Thank you, Ali. I think what we're going to do instead of coming out and walking the mic around, which can be a little problematic, is actually ask you to line up. And so if you guys are willing to do that, if there's somebody that's going to create a problem for, I see our first enthusiastic customer. Maybe we can just start a line off both directions and I'll alternate back and forth. What I'm going to do is I'll keep the mic so that our people that are online, I'm going to try to paraphrase and capture your question as best I can, speak it back into the mic and then give it to whoever I whoever I think will be able to provide an answer for you. And what's your name, sir?
Doug.
Doug, thanks for being here. I appreciate your enthusiasm. What can we answer for you tonight?
Okay, the 23 crashes that were over 10 years.
That's right.
What distance was that from one end to the other? Mile, 2 miles?
So Doug's question is the 23 crashes that we showed, those collision points, over what distance end to end did that happen? And, you know, it's essentially the project distance, but as well as, some of the neighborhoods, but
2 miles?
what's the pavement length? Can you guys tell me how much pavement we're putting down? A little less than half a mile as far as the length of the project. So, yeah.
All right, now on,
And Doug, before you continue, because the line is long and I know we have folks online too, how many questions do you have?
3.
3. Okay, I'm going to allow it. And then I'm going to encourage people, if you hear an answer to what you're asking, you know, peel off, but I'm happy to get more detail for you. What's your second question, Doug?
in terms of the crosswalk islands, are we getting rid of the crossing guards? Why do you need a crosswalk island?
So the question from Doug is, in terms of the crosswalk islands, are we getting rid of the cross guards? So, the school, I think what I'm hearing is absolutely not. The crossing guards are still going to be there. Is that correct? Okay.
As a follow-up, instead of having the islands and all that, why not put in the little button, like crosswalks, you press the button, a little red light stops in both directions?
Yeah.
So that way we can keep 2 lanes and it stops everybody?
Okay.
They don't.
Yeah. So,
Why, and then why grants? Why not budget for it?
okay. So I'll answer that one for you. So again, the question here, I'm just going to repeat it for our folks online and for maybe anyone who didn't hear. So for those crossings, instead of reducing lane width, why don't we put in push buttons and get some flashing lights so that when it's pushed, all the traffic stops and lets like, it's a great question, right? Like if we had all the money that we wanted to, we would do that in a heartbeat. Now, we did apply for a grant that we did not get. So we don't have the money to do that. This is not that project. And we will continue to look at the corridor. We will continue to apply for grants to put in flashing lights and increase safety where we can. And I can't tell you whether it will score high with the granting agencies, but we will continue to try. Now, and I want to say, as far as the county road fund, because I've managed it for a couple of years now, we have a lot of projects and a lot of road. We have over 2,600 road miles in the county, in the unincorporated area that we manage, and over 80 bridges. And all of those dollars have to be prioritized across the county. And we're not going to be able to do every project. So that's your answer as to why not just pay for it out of the county road fund. Well, what we're doing for the paving project, I don't know the answer to that, but what I do want to say, so the question is, what's the cost differential between what we're doing versus flashing lights? Yeah, so we're putting down paint. $200,000 to $300,000 for a flashing beacon at the crossing. So whereas this is paint that we're going to put down, $200,000 to $300,000. That's right. Yeah, that is correct, sir. So Mike, thanks for joining us tonight. Yeah,
Quickies.
yeah.
I appreciate the purpose of the blind spot being eliminated by reducing it to 1 lane.
Yeah, here.
That's a consideration I wasn't aware of. So that's a great idea, but the problem then becomes with the traffic that's going eastbound at Chinook in the dedicated left turn lane, and the traffic that's going westbound in front of Skyview, trying to get into the campus.
Yeah.
According to the map, there's not enough space for those cars. I'm told by people who live near Skyview that, I mean, because here it doesn't show whether it stops at 11th or 10th or 9th for the dedicated right turn lane. But I'm told that the traffic backs up all the way to 3rd which is 7 blocks further than the visual limits of the plan. And so what the concern then is, when that traffic occupies the entire right turn dedicated lane and then starts to back up into the through lane, same thing with the Chinook turn. It's not very deep. I don't know how many surveys were done of the flow there. But when that gets full and the traffic backs up into the through lane, it's going to be a train wreck. And I don't know if that was thought of.
Yeah, if I could, Mike, so thank you. I'm gonna let Dylan or Steve try to tackle that one. I think that's probably a question that a lot of people have, but before we answer it, did everybody hear the question? It's kind of a long one, right? But it has to do with that traffic queuing and whether the lane that remains as a through lane gets blocked, right? And so I'm gonna go back to what I said at the very beginning, then I'm gonna hand it over here. We are not going to solve the problem at drop off in schools. It's not going to happen. And if you see those long queuing lines now, and I've sat out there a couple of times myself and watched what happens. This is not going to solve that. What I hear coming from the audience for everybody online is that it's going to make it worse. And it's going to block the buses. Yeah. So I'm going to let Steve take a crack at it.
So like as Ken was saying, we have been out there to look at it. Matter of fact, I was just out the other day at the Alki Middle School. I noticed there was 8 or 9 cars that backed up out to the road. That's like 200 feet or so for a right turn lane. So we've noticed that there is backup out in the road. Also, we've been working with the school district saying, hey, why don't we have 2 lanes that are going into Alki Middle School? Everybody's going along the curb, and let's create 2 lanes like they do at Skyview High School, and we'll get more traffic off the road.
On the campus.
On the campus. So yeah, on the parking lot, right out here. So the combination of working with the school district to hopefully make some changes inside the parking lot, as well as possibly looking at right turn lanes. I'm not going to say that we're going to have a right turn lane that's going to capture all the cars that back up there, but we'll do our best to try to make that happen. So.
I think there's still a missing piece that I'm hearing is if you just have one through lane, that it's gonna, that congestion now is gonna affect it somehow differently because of the new striping, and that it's gonna make it worse. Is that the question? I still hear some people nodding, so. I hear the language, it was a nightmare, and I appreciate that. And a construction zone is a little bit different, hopefully people are slowed down. It's not, but. So I guess my question back is like, how is it different if the queuing is already happening in that right-hand lane? So I'm going to try to repeat this. So, yeah. Well, that's okay. Yeah.
Those ADA sidewalks, traffic for Skyview or other schools is backed up past the long church on whatever road it's named.
So what, let me just catch that for our audience online as well. That during construction, the traffic was backed up all the way past Skyview to, sorry, the other direction, west, okay, to the Mormon church. Yeah. Yeah. So he's saying that this is a commuting community, not a biking community.
Yes.
Yeah. So let me ask you something. If the school drop off and pick up situation was solved, would there be a problem? No, they aren't. And I think something, well, I think any question is valid. And my point being, like that problem is not likely to go away unless we solve it with the schools and what's going on campus and how they get in and out of traffic and how many of our kids are on buses or are being dropped off or picked up by their parents, right?
Most of the people here, kids aren't on buses because we're too close to the schools.
Most of the kids aren't on buses because we're too close to the schools.
Correct.
So how are they getting to the schools?
We have to drive them.
You have to drive them, or they walk, or they ride their bikes. Yeah.
That's fair.
Well, I think I want to kind of put a pin in this one because I think it's a difficult question that is difficult to answer. And I don't want us just to stand up here and say, we've modeled it, the numbers show it works. Like that's not helpful in this situation.
So,
Yeah. Okay.
It did come out.
He's saying that they saw the construction every day and the issues with it. So, yeah. We've got a lot of people waiting up here, so I want to respect that. And if you do have a question, please come up. But can we kind of move past that when it's not resolved and it's something that we need to look at and get feedback back to the public on, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. And if I could summarize for me just so I can hear.
Well,
Yeah.
just in general, like he said, so now we're down to one lane and
Yeah.
let's just say that we have a fender bender.
Yeah.
What's gonna happen with the traffic? right?
So if we're down to one lane, there's a fender bender, what's going to happen with the traffic? What happens, and I guess my question back is what happens now when there's a fender bender? Pull into the school lot to get out of the traffic if you can, or if it's worse than a fender bender, you're in the street, right?
So my real question is,
Yeah.
and we know what's gonna solve the problem with commuting of in and out of schools, and that's traffic lights. And we say it's not in the budget. But that's what makes it people more safe. So the pedestrians are not gonna be more safe if the wait time is longer because people drive like idiots. I sit out here every day. I'm the UPS driver that handles this entire area most of the time.
Yeah.
Cars are going
So
over the medians and into parking lots.
let me
In-
catch up with you,
Yeah.
so people online aren't wondering what you're saying, but to summarize, you're the UPS driver, you're out here all the time, and say it again for people aren't gonna,
I'm just saying that you're not, by creating more impatience and
yeah,
more
by
rush.
creating more impatience or anxious or waiting, people are gonna do more stupid stuff.
And I'm saying all the time, you're seeing cars going over the sidewalks into the kids club parking lot, into the rocks at HB Fuller. There's-
Sorry.
Through the. oh,
Yeah, it's okay. Like I'm gonna try to moderate it a little bit just so we're not here all night. But you're saying you see people going over the curb into kids club
Yeah,
and
right outside of this.
so I would like to address this, but maybe not as a great answer to your question. Can we all just slow down and stop being so stupid on the roads?
Well, you can't do that. I hear you.
No, I like, this is a real question that I have for everybody in this room because thank you. So she's saying that we're not the issue. Hang on.
Well, he's just
Hang on.
saying if everybody's.
I'm asking just a genuine question. Who in here speeds? I've got my hand up in the air because I speed. Like, if we're honest, do we speed? Yeah. And so, when I was sitting out there, I saw maybe 2 cars that were going the speed limit at 20 miles an hour. So I see it in the school zone when the lights are flashing. So I'm not trying to say that you guys are the problem. I'm saying, like, we are all the problem as far as how we drive and our impatience and the decisions that we make. So I'm only bringing it to the focus and as a question to all of us in this room. I'm just asking you guys, like, if somebody's life gets taken because we made a decision that was on impulse or impatience, it's not going to be worth it. It's not going to be worth it for anybody in here, It's not gonna be worth it for me or any of my staff, and certainly not for that person who dies or their family. So I only am taking a pause on your question, just to ask really for our community, because I need to ask this more, is like, can we all just take a breath and not be in such a rush? Now, I'm not saying this is a solution, but it's a real request from me as a public works director, because it's crazy out there right now. I used to ride a motorcycle every day. I don't ride anymore because, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I don't have an answer for you.
Well, I get that. I mean, we've already talked about that. The traffic lights are going to be what fixes the traffic problem.
So traffic signals for solving the school pickup and drop off problem are probably not warranted, meaning we're never going to get money to build a signal. I said, we will look to see, but it would be very odd, I think, to show this unusual situation as warranting a traffic signal. So, sir, I'm going to ask you just kindly, yeah, if you could. So, yeah.
Because you didn't
Thank
answer
you.
my question.
That's fair. And if you wouldn't mind putting it in writing, we'll keep working on it. So. Hi.
All right, thank you for the opportunity for
Yeah.
asking questions here. Yeah, here,
Well, that's okay. I'll summarize for you.
okay. You mentioned that one of the driving forces here is the problem with 2 traffic lanes at a crosswalk being very dangerous. What data do you have and what's the source of the data?
Yeah, so we've mentioned that having 2 traffic lanes at the crosswalk is very dangerous. And what data do we have? What's the source of the information? Gentlemen?
Can I say something?
Yeah. Mary?
So,
Yeah.
that's an honest question, and I appreciate it, but.
Thank you.
I work as the crossing guard at Chinook. I have for the last 10 years. And I know this is a community, and I know I heard people say it's not our problem. And I'm not trying to like call anybody out or be rude or anything like that, but the people that drive this road are people that live in this community. It's not people getting off the highway trying to find a gas station. It's people that live in this community. They know this is a school zone. And I have situations like this man was talking to on a regular basis weekly. And maybe we haven't had a fatality, but we've had some really close calls. And it is very regularly. So I don't keep track of all the data. I don't make a tally list every time it happens, but I'm telling you, it's regularly. Yeah, and I just take 2 days ago, I was crossing this, I started across a student, traffic was stopped here, and traffic was stopped going eastbound on both lanes, and a car flew right through in the middle on the lane.
And they won't do that if there's.
Thank you.
And they won't do that if there's only 1 lane.
I think there's less questions.
He's asking if they won't do that if there's only 1 lane. So again, like, we think it's safer. That's what we're proposing. That's why we're proposing the changes. And you want to know where's the data come from? And I think that's a question. If we could get your information, we'll make sure I get it back to you. And we'll put it on a fact for everybody to read. So,
And
yeah.
related to that,
If you have questions, please come up. Please come up if you have questions. So, sorry, yeah.
related to that,
Yeah,
okay, the traffic that has to access the area west of here, primarily Philida, maybe part of Ridgefield, is coming from an area that's not fully developed. So in the future, there will be more traffic when that area is developed. I'm wondering how reducing lane capacity is going to improve safety.
thank you.
So we're dealing with the conditions that we have today. And Today, the volume of traffic, I get a little technical here, the volume of traffic is 9,000 average daily trips per day. Federal, the entire day. The entire day, there are 9,000 vehicles every day that use this road in this area. Federal and state guidelines, suggestions, recommendations say that one lane of traffic each direction can handle up to 20,000 vehicles.
That is correct. And I think what people don't understand is when our roads fail, as far as level of service, like whether our ability to move traffic through is typically at the intersections. And we've talked about it tonight. You see it at 11th, you see it at the school. Like when an intersection fails, that's where the congestion is because that's where the turn movements are happening. But the lanes that go between those intersections are not where the volume problem or the congestion occurs. Yeah, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, sir. Hi.
My name's Dan.
Dan.
I was just wondering why taking a lane of traffic and turning it into a one-way lane or a turn lane for just a couple hours a day is going to help, because when school's not in session or just during the day when people are picking up and dropping off, we could be using that lane.
So thank you, Jan. And I think this speaks to what I was just saying. So one lane is enough volume to get the traffic through during normal conditions when the school isn't there.
Is that true, or are you saying through traffic?
You're asking when you live in the neighborhood, is that true, or just through traffic? And I think your challenge is getting out into the arterial from your neighborhood, right? Not the ability to move on the arterial once you're out there. So, yeah, and that gets to whether a signal or different or intersection control is needed. So, Jan, does that answer your question? It does seem logical that having a second lane could get more traffic through. What I'm saying is like one lane is enough for the volumes that we see in the area. And then I think to speak even more to the development side, like quite a bit of development can happen before we're at capacity on a single lane road like this. And I know that's a kind of, you have to believe it and not be a traffic engineer, but it really is the case. Yeah.
I want to thank you for looking out for our children. That's important. I think this really should involve the sheriff's office and starting to crack down on speeders and people who are hogging lanes and making poor choices. I lived in a small community before I lived here, and we had traffic problems, and the police were involved with it all the time and were correcting it. But we had a main street that was a connector between two other communities and a freeway. So it wasn't as effective. But I think when they mentioned here that this is mostly local traffic, I think it could be effective if we got the sheriff's office involved, because you're throwing a lot of money to solve a problem and the drivers are still the same. They're not changing. And they're the ones that are causing the problems. I don't want to see anybody get hurt or killed, especially a child. And I just think you should maybe think about it from a different perspective, because I don't know about you, but when school session starts on, I just dread driving down the street. And I tend to go on 149th all the time to just get around it.
Yeah, you find a different route. Yeah. So I do want to say, and I want to keep moving for other questions, but Jan, so what I hear you saying is the sheriff has a job to do, and that could be enforcement in the location. I agree 100%. So.
One last thing.
If it's quick.
Yeah, I was just curious. I've lived here 5.5 years. I've never seen anybody in the bike lane. Have you all seen people drive?
So with the question, what I'm seeing is a lot of people involved with the school are saying yes, and then a lot of people otherwise are saying no. So, yeah, thank you. Because the cars are in the bike lane, so no one can use it. Okay, thank you, Jan. Yeah.
Can I bring up one quick little thing that?
If you could wait, sir. So
it has to do with when everybody's talking about traffic volume.
talking about hour, 24-hour period. What they're concerned about and didn't know how to say it is peak hour volume.
So, sir, nobody online can hear you and a lot of people
No, I
online can't hear you. So,
you
okay,
know,
we can talk about peak volumes and models.
And so the peak
and-
hour is what the concern is, not the overall daily.
Well, that's fine. We can get to that. So.
Yeah, hi, my name is Beth, and I actually have questions for you too. So you had alluded to the fact that there are these grants, and it almost sounded to me like you're only able to apply for these once a year. So is that the driving force behind where we can get these or the beacons and traffic lights? And the other part of that question is, you were talking about a safe school grant or something. Is that something that we as a collective group can hound and email and be the squeaky wheel to try to have more presence behind all of that? A little bit more fight to it?
To touch on the second part of the question, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know how much community involvement plays a role in whether or not we would get a grant, but that's a good question. If you want to put that on the comment card, we can take that back to our program people and find out exactly how much punch we can put behind these things. And that's a great question. I would love to see the community involved. I think that's great. But to the beginning, yes. So all of this came about because of the Safe Route to School grant, which is specifically designed for these sorts of scenarios where we have schools, students, and traffic. And so we went out for the grant, we didn't get the grant, so now we're kind of compromising and mashing the existing plan into our already existing project that was pretty taxed to begin with. So that's sort of where we landed on this compromised version of the plan. But again, I want to reiterate that this is iterative. So this is our first bite at the apple. And then as we get other funding sources, we're going to continue to evolve this.
But how often does that funding?
Oh, the safe.
Is it only once a year or is it throughout the year? That's.
The question is, how often are these grants available? So all kind of the grants differ, but the Safe Routes to School grant is a biennial. So it came out in 24, it comes out again in 26. So we're aiming for the 2026 grant. We're already going to start working on getting ready for that. And we've been meeting with all of the principals. We've been meeting with the school district. We've been meeting with bus drivers. We've been out and interviewing people. So we are putting all feet on the ground to try to get there.
One more point I wanted to make to the woman that was just up here. My husband is a school bus driver. We also, up on 29th, about 2 weeks ago, 9:30 at night, crossing the street in what is kind of like a make-believe crosswalk, and one of our local residents was killed. Because of that, we actually did call the sheriff's department, and I encourage every single one of you to call the sheriff's department anytime you see anything. Because this week, even today, there was 2 sheriffs out in front of Chinook or Skyview. And it also happened again not too long after we called about just trying to find out what was going on. Call them.
Thank you for that comment. Yeah, do that. And
Yeah.
thank you for sharing.
That was my wife, Beth. And I was the one that called, and he did let us know that, you know, they're strapped for funding as well as everybody. But he said that everybody needs to try to get together with city council or anybody that is in charge of getting more funding for the sheriff to hire more people. They are trying to get more people. And I was surprised that really today they did have 2 sheriffs out here. It was really cool. And I did notice traffic was a lot slower while they were here. So that did help. But my other question, or not a question, I just want to let you know, I'm a bus driver as well, and we all leave Skyview at the same time. And if they're going to have the traffic one lane backed up, our route to come out of Skyview is mostly come out to 139th and go right and come out to 21st Avenue and make the loop down 149th. we only have so much time to get to the next school, which is about 5 or 10 minutes extra. I don't know if we can make it.
Thank you.
Thank you for your.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Sir? And if I could, I'm just going to ask if you can pick your best question, maybe keep it to one for us so we can keep it moving.
Okay, it's John Williams is my name. I lived out here for about 40 years. In fact, where I'm standing right now used to be a farm. And two-lane road out here. Some of you might recall that. I come from the, if it's not broke, don't try to fix it crowd. Furthermore, the bikes do not pay any kind of fee at all. Okay, I've got no problem with bikes, but it is what it is. As a driver, motor vehicle, I pay a fee every year. And I just, the other thing, one more question is the cost. What is the cost of this?
Thank you.
The design specifically for this at paint, not having the concrete, not having the beacons or anything like that, was close to $250,000 for the paint, because the paint is very expensive. So, and that is the crux of what we're dealing with. The cost of supplies, the cost of labor, everything is very high, so.
Oh, yeah, it's
stuff
not,
done.
not cheap.
Yeah.
Sorry. And so what, there's a question in the crowd about the cost of the lights and yeah, and sorry, why don't you come up and so we can, okay, yeah, sure.
So the question is about striping and the cost of striping. We're paving this road. It will have 0 striping on it. We would need to put striping regardless of what striping we put back.
So the paving project itself is a countywide project, so it's kind of hard to strip it down to just this area. But that is probably something we could break out and get an answer on the FAQ for you guys on. That something you could work on, Jim? Okay, thank you. Ginger, if I could introduce Ginger, she's a former pilot and we're happy to hear your question tonight.
Okay. Actually, I have a couple of comments. Number one, I appreciate what you're doing for the kids. I think that striping is a good thing. Whenever you have a traffic that carries a lane that carries traffic and you shut that down, the traffic is going to go someplace else. And that's going to create congestion, and you are going to have problems with ambulances and fire trucks that need to get where they need to go.
Thank you, Ginger. So, yeah, Allie's going to answer this one.
So one of the things that I did in preparation for this is I went out and I found all across the state of Washington and Oregon areas that did similar restriping projects that we're doing here. What they found was, because we've got that center, the area that he has marked off with the yellow hexes, what are they called? Cross hatches. There we go. That area is no longer going to be occupied by traffic. And what they found in the pilot programs and the existing programs throughout the state of Oregon is that because that center lane doesn't have traffic in it, when an emergency vehicle needs to get through really fast, it can use that lane. And so there was no slowdown on emergency response. There was only a 7%, 10% overall slowdown to the traffic moving through that area, but anywhere from 25 to 50% reduction in crash and collision issues. So huge improvement, small impact, and the emergency vehicles got through just fine.
If I could just add to that as well, like, we are not reducing the pavement width, we're just changing the striping. So vehicles that pull over, it will look the same. And I understand that that may be difficult to believe. Ginger says it doesn't compute, and I appreciate that. But the data would show that it does work that way. And I'll make this pledge, like if we really get it wrong, once we try to assimilate all the information and make changes, like it's just paint, right? I know Steve told me don't say that, Ken. But like, it's kind of hard to bring up the paint and put it back down, of course, but like, we want it to be safe. We want it to work. We don't want to make it worse. So, all right.
I'll keep this short. I have several questions, but I guess my question, I was a manager as well. I would ask that you poll the audience. I'm proud they're here. And let's do a yay, nay vote on how it looks so far. You have the courage to do that?
I've got lots of courage,
Okay.
but I'm not sure what we're polling.
We're polling, you think this whole idea is a good idea? Raise your hand, say yes.
We have to do something for our kids.
Understand.
So I'm willing to do a yay, nay poll, but I will say this, like, if it comes down to extra congestion and extra time on the road versus something that's safe related for someone who's walking or a child, guess what I'm going to pick every time. So if we can ask that question too, I'm happy to poll, but I don't know yet, you know.
So
Yeah.
just to follow up, I think the idea is a good one, but I also think it's very short, put together in a quick pace. I think you could get more feedback from these people. We might be able to give you a better idea if you're willing.
I appreciate that. Sure, let's do the poll. And I want to thank you for asking the question. And I want to say again, like, I'm going to do the other poll too. So I guess the question is, like, based on the project as you understand it tonight, show of hands, who thinks that we should go ahead with the project? Please raise your hand. So I don't almost have to count, but I'd say it's probably a bit less than half, but maybe getting close. And then let's see the other side. You think we shouldn't do the striping the way you said. So I don't know, it's a pretty split. Maybe we need our online folks to.
Mine did say my hand is up in favor of the project.
One hand in favor. So I appreciate that, because I think it's important to kind of get a sense of the temperature, and we all have different, we all have different reasons, but now I want to ask you this, like, again, me and my serious speeding question earlier, sorry about that, but like, congestion, if I'm going to add 15, I don't think it's much more than that, but during, let's say, school pickup, I'm going to add 15 minutes. I think that's like a worst case. I don't even think it's going to happen, but I'm going to add 15 minutes to the congestion in the area for all of you. Or someone's going to get hurt. Maybe someone's going to die. Like, do you get it? Like, it's not a real question, is it? So it's not a valid question, exactly. And what I would say is, like, if congestion and that wait time is more important to you, please talk to me afterwards, because I really want to understand that. You know, my son will be starting at Skyview next year as a freshman. So, well, actually, he's part of the SMT, so we're from across town. So, yeah. So we will drive him, and I'll be part of the problem. So, yeah.
All right, we're really running overtime, but I want to get as many questions as possible. And we have some online questions, and the online folks have been waiting very patiently. So I will ask, if you've already been in line and gotten up and asked a question once tonight, if you could take a seat and maybe like email us your questions or come talk to us afterwards, so we can get to someone who hasn't spoken yet, and then get to a couple online questions, and then have time to have individual conversations while we're cleaning up, because we have to be out of here at a certain time.
Thanks, Kaylee. And yeah, so, all right.
All right, you're going to put in a new road. Is that just a 3-4 inch overlay, or is it a full tear up and put down?
We're gonna grind the edges. We're gonna grind the edges of the road, and then I don't know, it's a 2-inch overlay. Thank you for the question, sir. Thank you for the question, sir. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jerry, and I'm one of the bus drivers as well for Skyview. The question that I have, or one of three questions. First question is, what are the specific metrics that you're going to be looking at that tells you whether or not this is successful?
The question was, what are the specific metrics that we're going to be looking at that will tell us if the project was successful?
We look at several things, so look at we'll look at speeds, we'll look at traffic volumes, we'll look at congestion, we'll look at how the crosswalk's working. The main thing is how the crosswalk's working.
How are you measuring for us?
And a lot of it's through observations. We do have instruments that collect data for us and things like that, so.
Please come up if you have questions. So, sir, can I limit you to just one more question? We do have a lot of people waiting still. Thank you.
The other question, the follow-up question to that was, at what point will you be making reviewing those metrics?
6 months, year, 2
Yeah.
years? Where?
A couple weeks after, then a couple months. So there'll be just different times that we'll do it.
And especially if a problem is reported. So, thank you, sir.
Because I can tell you that there's already 15-minute backups to get to Skyview.
There are already 15-minute backups to get to Skyview. Absolutely.
Okay, so I don't really have a question. I have more of a comment, being that I have been raising children in this neighborhood. We've been walking to Chinook for 9 years in Skyview, and somebody said the problem, there's not a problem, there is a problem. It's very much a problem. Those 23 incidences are just the reported ones. There are people driving through those crosswalks all the time. Our neighbor, literally big sister, pulled little kindergartner out from a car that wasn't stopping at the crosswalk. So there is a big problem. Our kids need to be safe. We need to be able to know that they can go to school and be safe. And they're getting out at track. There's no crossing guards when all these afternoon athletics get out. And we need one lane to know a car is going to stop and another car is not going to plow through our children. It's a big problem. And I know it's going to seem a little slower. And I know it's going to back up on that end in front of the Mormon church. But I really don't think your Skyview is going to change at all. The cars back up already. There's already 2 lanes of stopped cars backing up towards Kids Club. That's not going to change. That right lane is still going to be for all the parents who drop off and pick up their kids on Hathaway and shouldn't. I also know that we're going to be more like a residential area, as we should be. I also know that Thomas Jefferson and Philida have 1 lane going in each direction. I trust our Chinook and our Alki, they will be able to make a way to get the cars off of the main road. They have to. They have enough parking lots. There has to be a solution. So thank you very much for caring.
Thank you.
I just wanted to recommend that, or suggest that the right turn lane could be, for the Skyview, could be dedicated only for the busy hours, right? That way we could allow for normal traffic, right? Yeah. And then my only other thought, you guys talk about budgeting and what's at hand, but could you plan for the future so you're not wasting the money on the paint? And does that make sense? Like, do it in a way where you're solving a problem now with anticipation instead of ignoring what's going to happen.
If I could just ask you, what's going to happen and planning for which future when you share that?
Yeah, one gentleman was talking about as Richfield grows and comes out.
Okay. Thank you for the question. And we do plan on our arterials for what size they need to be. That's how it ended up as 2 lanes to begin with. And we think we have enough capacity to have it as 1 lane for that to still handle the development in those 2 trips. So.
Yeah, first I want to say thank you as somebody who's about to have kids starting kindergarten next year. I appreciate this a lot. Just from living in the neighborhood, it's going to matter a lot to me. I had one kind of a more technical question. When there's the right-hand lane that goes into Skyview, I know sometimes what I see is people will drop off while they're there and then pull back out of that lane into the left-hand lane? Is there going to be, I know there are other buffer zones, I think the tubular markings, is there anything other than just, I'm actually assuming a solid stripe? Is it going to be a solid stripe, or is there going to be anything more like tubing to kind of keep people from crossing lanes?
Yeah, thank you for the comments and great question. Did you get the question, Dylan? Okay, so the question is, oh, you got it. Yeah, I don't need to repeat it.
It's just going to be a solid line. We're not going to put any tubular markers there. So, but we'll still be able to pick up our kids and move over to the through lane.
Thank you. So I live in Salmon Creek Meadows, and so we exit or get onto 139, just, 1 block east of 11. When the kids and parents are doing their thing, and the buses, so often the buses will come into Salmon Creek Meadows and they try to get onto 139. They're taking a left where we are, and also at 11. So it's very difficult. I mean, if I go to leave, it's like 2 o'clock. I'm like, oh, shoot, should have gone earlier, should have gone later. So right there, it seems like the most safe thing would be a stoplight. So my question is, who funds stoplights? And what is the time frame for that to be looked at for even a stoplight at one of those places, either at the entryway to Salmon Creek Meadows or at 11, and have the buses have a stoplight so people can, because it is dangerous to head out there. It's just like being a pedestrian when you're in the car and trying to get going east. So, but it seems like funding for stoplights.
Funding for stoplights. Yeah. So this is a great question. We do our own traffic studies. Steve's group, Dylan, does this type of work to look at whether an intersection warrants a traffic signal. And that just means, is it necessary for the traffic that it's seen? And I think the challenge here, and you're not the only one who's asked me this question tonight, I think the challenge is the warrant or the need at the intersection is tied so directly, again, to the drop off and pickup at the school. So I don't know the answer of whether that would normally warrant a signal or just for this event kind of that keeps happening. But I can say that is something we plan to look at and look at the signal, see if it's warranted, and make a determination. And as far as the funding, that's something that the county road fund, and if we have grants, depending on, type of school, would fund the signal. Yeah. Yeah. So the comment is that another thing that would be less expensive would be funding or installing for a four-way stop at the location. Thank you for the comment. So we're going to switch over to online questions. Kaylee's going to facilitate that.
So a lot of the questions are kind of similar, so I'm going to group a few of them together. So as traffic congestion occurs, drivers will use alternatives like 149th Street. Another commenter mentioned, I believe, 138. How will you address safety issues from drivers using alternate routes?
Steve.
There's always potential issues, especially starting off when you first do the improvements. So we're hoping after we start doing the improvements, people may choose to detour, but eventually they'll probably come back and use the roads. So we don't think there's going to be all that much detouring to other roads, side roads.
Steve, I have also heard you say, though, that and this goes for any time in any road, if you are noticing traffic issues anywhere, to contact us. And we do send a traffic engineer out to go do vehicle counts and look at the situation, look at sight distances and things like that. So if you notice any increase in traffic from people going around and using alternate routes, just contact us and let us know. And then will the project do anything to make the 20-mile-per-hour flashing lights more obvious for traffic entering 139th in between the flashing lights? People enter the road in the middle of the school zone and can't see that the school zone is in effect.
Yeah, that is one of the issues that we've heard quite a bit from people about how you can't see those flashing lights. So we've talked about maybe adding an additional light in the kind of more in the middle so that everybody knows that the flashing lights are going and that you're in an active school zone. But we also have signs in between the flashing lights that tell you that it's a school speed 20 when children are present. And that's 365 days of the year. Every day when a children is present, you should be going 20 miles per hour.
You should note that by code, by Washington Administrative Code, when children are present, means that they're on the sidewalk or waiting to cross the street. So that doesn't mean they're in school or anywhere else.
Thank you. And just to add to that, the question was asked a little bit differently to me earlier in the evening. The schedules are all a little bit different. We don't know when people are getting in and out. So if I come in on 16th and start heading east, how do I know that that's that condition where the lights are flashing? So to Steve's point, always be cautious. But to the point of the question, that's something we can look at. Yeah.
Okay, two more that I think we haven't covered. I live in a private community across from Skyview High School. We have signs posted that there is, quote, no student drop off or pickup allowed. In spite of those signs, we have parents that routinely drive through, park, and block traffic at the entrance of the community. I have concerns that this revision is going to cause even more unwanted congestion in our community. Can you speak to this concern, and is there something in the revision plan that would mitigate the current problem and possible future issues?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think we have touched on this a little bit, and it's kind of at the heart of a lot of the questions. So we believe it will make it safer, but we're not fixing the problem that exists with it's chaos, guys. What's going on with the drop off and pickup? We're not gonna fix that. And what I will say is I've certainly learned a lot more through this project and our analysis and sitting out here myself watching things that it at least puts some urgency for me to have a bigger conversation with some of the schools to see if there are some alternates we can do on site at the schools to alleviate some of it. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, and I'm looking at the clock and looking at all the chairs that we have to stack before we're supposed to be out of here and lock the doors. So unfortunately, I think that's all the time that we have for questions, but our contact information is on the project website. There are comment cards in the front. Please email, call us, drop us a comment card, and we will respond to you as soon as we can.
Thank you all again for coming tonight. We appreciate it.